right, welcome to the Stomp Strong Show. We are at episode 8. How are you? I am Stomp. This is Saad. We have had a pretty good week, an interesting week. We had 3 questions from last week's episode and a couple weeks before, and one of those was from Vermont Derek, and he was wondering how Saad progressed as a martial arts instructor, what kept you on your game, and how do you progress as a guy that's been in it for, I think you said since 2005?
Yeah, 2000, yeah.
2000?
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, 2005, 2006, yeah.
I think it was 2005, yeah. Right? So it's a long time now, 15 years, right. And you've been going the whole time and got your own school eventually, and you've taken it extremely serious, and I've been in your schools, and I know how instructive you can be, and I totally enjoy it. But how do you stay on your game?
So the way I continue to progress, because everybody has their own views of like what a black belt is. To me, when you get a black belt in any martial art, including Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it doesn't mean like you're an expert. And that's just to me. There's other people that have their own opinions, and that's cool. My opinion is, when you get a black belt, it means you're a serious student, and there's still so much to learn. Like, I'm constantly learning new things, and I seek people out to continue to grow, because I don't want to just stagnate with the things that I know. And in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, what I love about it is like we're constantly looking for ways to do every single technique we do. We try to find a way to do it better, especially when somebody introduces a counter to a technique that we like to do, and then it's like, oh, that's stalemating me. What adjustments can I do to make it better? So what I will do is, teachers throughout the jiu-jitsu world are readily accessible, and they make themselves very available. Like I've gone out and trained with Hoist Gracie before. I've trained with Henzo Gracie before.
That's incredible.
Matter of fact, this Saturday, my instructor, Luis Paras, is coming to my academy. He's flying in from Florida, because Luis is from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, but he lives in Florida right now at his academy that he runs in Jacksonville, Florida, and he's flying in to teach a seminar at my school this Saturday, and that will help me grow and also gets my students a new perspective of just how he does the techniques, because there's techniques that I do that are different than Luis, and there's much more that he knows that I don't know.
Sure.
I've been a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu since 2015. Luis got his black belt in 1984.
Wow.
And it was presented to him by Elio Gracie and Hickson Gracie in a joint promotion.
Can't get no better pedigree than that.
Yeah, so he's been a black belt longer than many of my students have been alive. Since 1984, this guy. And so he knows so much about jiu-jitsu. He's trained with so many legends, and he's a legend himself. He's
36-year black belt, right?
Yeah, he's an 8th degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and that enables him to wear a red and white belt. And the next promotion, the last promotion he can get, is the 9th degree, and that's when it'll be an all red belt. And so the way I keep my skills up and keep progressing is I seek out other instructors to train with, and then my instructor, the one that promotes me, Luis promoted me to 1st degree black belt maybe a year and a half ago. So he's the one that, he's still monitoring my progress.
Okay.
We were supposed to go to...
I would have never thought of that.
Right, that's how I continue to grow.
And he's making sure you're on point still.
Yeah.
As an instructor, as a practitioner, as his student.
And so he wasn't just my teacher to black belt. It's like, no, the relationship and the teaching continue on past black belt. And my intent is it will continue for the rest of our lives. So like right now, we were supposed to be in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil.
I was about to say, don't you go to Rio every year?
Not every year, but every few years I try to get down there, and just because that's where Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was born. So I try to go down there and train, and there's a lot of amazing practitioners in Rio de Janeiro.
How's that trip?
Oh, it's great. It's great. It's a long flight. It's like, oh my gosh, it's like was like a 10, 12-hour flight. It's almost like a cross-country flight, from New York to California. It's like, it's that long. But man, you get down there, it's a beautiful country. The people are incredibly friendly. And then, I'm just down there, to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
And you bring your school with you, right? I mean, that's like you take Who Wants to Go. That's a whole year planned. And I know that you guys do other stuff too. Like you went to not a zoo, but a display for tigers once.
Oh, yeah, we went to
as a group, you guys
preserve.
are doing all kinds of interesting stuff. And I saw something interesting too going on that one day in class. You pulled us all out to the side by the window, and you said, "Hold on, man, we got to give this whole half of the building up to this guy. They're going to be doing some high, what did you say, very dynamic throws or something like that, like some high stress throws. These are high level judo guys coming in for some Olympic training, and they're going to be training here right now. And you just gave up half the school immediately for these 5 students, and I was watching that day. This is when I had the hole in my foot. And I sat there and watched these guys, and it was scary how fast they were.
Oh, they're amazing.
How fast they were screaming, and just the throws were just insane.
Because for the judo practitioners, like they're training to get ready for the Olympics, and that was really thrown, out of kilt, with the virus lockdown, schools shutting down. So what I try to do for our judo practitioners, because at my school we teach both Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and judo, so I think they're 2 amazing arts. And, so I want to make sure that I give them every opportunity to be as prepared as they can be, to achieve, their dreams. And the 3 young adults, that they just need a couple more points, all 3 of them, to be eligible for the Olympics. And
wow.
That's
right
what
on
they're
the edge
striving for.
And that's why it was so crazy to me, because what was really cool about that was a father and his daughter and his son. And like their best student. And I sat there and watched that force them go at it, and the father was not easy on nobody. And they were super crazy serious, bro. It was like a spectacle for me. I was like watching. I'd never seen anything like it.
Yeah, it's Arthur Wright and his 3 kids, 2 sons and a daughter, and they are amazing.
It was just a cool thing to see, and it was like impromptu. And I know we got to build something. I know you need some labor for something we're building for your Paul Harris, right?
Yeah. Well, we're not building it for him. We're actually building it for our judo program, because it's like right now my mats they're 1.5 inches thick, but with the judo throws, they are so hard and violent.
Yeah, it's crazy.
We want to have a spring floor for them, so I've decided to invest a significant amount of money to build these spring floors. I got a guy from California that's going to come out and build them for me. And he was going to come out this week, but he's going to come out, something happened in his schedule, because he teaches at a school, and he didn't have his instructor available to cover him. So now he's going to come out next week, and he's going to build this so our judo practitioners can do their throws.
And not risk it.
Yeah, it's not as painful.
Safer.
Right.
A little safer. You can put a little more into it. Yeah. It's very cool, very cool.
But yeah, that's how I stay on top of, keep progressing as a black belt and school owner.
And Tim, Tim will keep you on your toes, probably.
Sure. So I go to Brazil. I train in Brazil. Like this summer, we're going with 15 of our students, and we're going to go to Brazil, and we're going to do a training camp there with the Brazilians, with my teacher Luis, and his sons, and whoever else comes along, because he's got a lot of different.
So do you think of yourself as a student all the time?
Oh yeah.
So you're a student first,
sure.
then.
Yeah, because I'll have a student come in, and it could be a white belt or blue belt or a purple belt. It doesn't matter what the belt is, and they might have seen a technique somewhere, and I'll watch them do it, and it'll be a little bit better than what I'm doing.
Sure.
And to progress, you have to be able to check your ego at the door and say, hey, I don't have all the best answers. I've got the best answers I know, but there's still more to know, And I think that's what happens. The more educated you get as a person, no matter what the field is, the more educated you get, the more you realize the less you know.
Anything.
Yeah,
exactly. Like shooting last week, I run around a little bit, and all of a sudden I'm not hitting the head no more, and I'm like, okay, hold on, let me switch to the chest, and then you run around a little more, and now I'm having a hard hitting the chest, and I'm like, what's going on? This is so strange. And then I realized my skill set is It's what I know is what I'm good at.
Sure.
What I don't know, what I haven't practiced, I am not good at.
Yeah.
Good follow up on that question. We have another a question from a lot of the students, right? And this is a good one
Let's
too.
do your AK one. That way,
you want to do the AK one?
I want more of your input. So.
Okay, so like for me, we had a question from somebody, and I've heard it from a few guys, and this I believe is episode 6 where we talk about budget AKs, and I talk quite a bit about high end and mid grade and low end AKs. But the question is my top 3 favorite AKs that I could get right now, or what do I think are the best?
Right.
And
price is not an option.
Price is not an option.
Right.
And as far as I know right now, what I know is there's no way that anything coming out of Definitive Arms isn't the most accurate gun, period.
Sure.
And I'm hearing it from other people. So it's not just me that owns it. It's like a guy that owns one of his guns. He's saying the Wasser is the most accurate AK he's got from Chase. Mm-hmm. So this kid is like some type of savant on a gun. And they were talking about that 5 years ago when he was 22. Yeah. So he's like 27 now.
Yeah, and he's out of Indiana.
And this is Jim Fuller and Mark Krebs talking about him at 22.
That's amazing.
And I started following that kid, and I talked to him for a long time on the phone many times, and he's extremely precise in his words, and he knows exactly what he wants to do when he's in a conversation, and he knows the answer to everything pretty much when it comes to an AK.
Sure.
Then I watched Robsy go build one, and I waited 4 years for that gun. I'm gonna be honest with you, I was pissed. Mm-hmm. I had talked to the guy a couple times. I made all the comments. I told the whole world what I thought, just as far as talking to people. Yeah. And I waited 4 years for it, and I'm glad I did. Right. And anything you see for sale from him, just buy it. Sure. I mean, if you want to have the best AK in the world, as far as I am concerned, is from Chase, from Definitive Arms. Copper Custom sells them for him. So you can get more guns now. Right. And he had an East German the other day for sale, and my most accurate badass AK, no matter what, is behind Saad's shoulder right there, and that's my gun from Chase. So that's my number one. But right behind it is my Krebs, and it's not as accurate as Chase's gun, but this gun for the money is probably the best deal. Sure. So for $1,900, it's totally tricked out from the factory. You don't have to put nothing on it except the red dot. That's it. You can't. I put on the big badass 6-inch titanium brake to make it shoot like a 22 because I wanted it to be as good as it could ever be. Right. So I have the baddest Krebs you can have. It's called an AC-18. It's sick. It has the extended sight picture. It has the Krebs safety that everybody uses. It has the Krebs rail. It has an ALG trigger tuned. It has so many features. There is no feature-ridden gun, period, better than a Krebs.
And Mark Krebs is out of Illinois. You know, like Definitive Arms out of Indiana, Mark Krebs out of Illinois. These aren't guys that came over from Eastern Europe.
No, Mark started out making 1911s.
Yeah, like these guys, you know, who would have thought like two guys from the Midwest would be like two of the best AK gun builders in the world, hands down. Like just
the third, I would say, and Krebs is incredible. I mean, he's been doing it the longest out of everybody. 84, I believe. Wow. He started converting them in 84, making them custom, figuring out how they ticked. In 84, I think he switched over to start going into them then, so longer than anybody. Yeah. Then you have what I would say third for me, and where I put my money down on third for me, but I don't know about shooting it yet at all, is Meridian Defense out of California. And they just have some really insane builds that are like crazy looking, and they have like milled Sharps receivers that go right to M4 butt pads, and I mean all integrated into the receiver. Yeah. So you don't have to add anything. You just put a M4 stock on it and start shooting. Nice. So these are upwards of $3,000. So it's 2,600, 2,700. These are milled guns. These are insane. But they also have a lower tier where they'll make you some really crazy Wassers, and they'll put it together but these are made by a couple dudes in California, right? So They have a lower tier, and I have a lower tiered Wasser that has the abridged front end. They stole that front end from Rifle Dynamics, who got it from Jim Ford's front end.
Sure.
I'll talk about Jim Ford next. But Jim Ford, Meridian Defense, I'll almost straight up. They abridged their front end the way Ford does his front end,
Sure.
and they made a 1 pound lighter gun than the front end. This is what I bought. It's called the Lust, and then it's a Wasser, and it already comes with the Avtomat in it, so I can put a red dot the second I get it. I can mount a red dot and a flashlight, and in the back end they have what's called a triangle folding stock from a Bulgarian parts kit. So it's a Frankenstein gun. In fact, I ordered this previous gun I ordered was called the I can't remember, but it was called whatever, and it had the wood stock, and you'd have I think it was called the Pestilence. I think it was Pestilence.
Yeah, because they named their gun models after the 7 deadly sins.
Right. So yeah, I think it was Pestilence.
Right. Nice.
And I got the 73 stock.
Right.
Or parts kit matching. 73 for my age, or parts kit matching. That's what I ordered. And then they leaked a picture of a Lust, and I was like, whoa, what the fuck? What? Okay, so that's a Pestilence with a folding stock on it now, and I don't have any triangle folding stocks.
Right.
And I've always wanted one. So now you have the light front end by a pound with a triangle folding stock for like an additional $200.
Yeah.
It's like there's no question what I'm doing here.
Sure.
This is the whole front end. The whole back end assembly has to be built. It's a lot going into it to put in a triangle folding stock. You can't build the gun and then put it in. You have to build it with the gun. So this is a whole back end has to get riveted in. So now they jumped my order. So I changed it like 3 months out or something, whatever. I changed it, and they put me on for a Lust. I called them immediately. I go, dude, can you add that rear end to mine? And I actually talked to a guy, and that's what's crazy about these companies I'm talking about right now. I want a little notion to that. So he says, yeah, we'll put you in for we'll change the rear end. And then I went on wait, and my time came up and passed, and I waited a while because I'm used to custom shit. And I call him, and he goes, well, yeah, you got kicked to another list on the different gun that aren't out yet.
Right.
So I'm waiting. I'm in the middle of waiting. And I'll have it. I'm gonna like hound them like next week and tell them we have a class. You know, we're taking this class, right? So that's in November.
Sure.
I got to get the gun in and shoot it like 400 or 500 rounds through, make sure it works.
Right.
But this is a 1 pound lighter on the front end. It's going to be really cool to run that class. I don't think it's going to be anywhere near as accurate as what I got from Krebs or from Definitive Arms, but we'll find out. Right. It's a handmade Wasser. So that's going to be a really cool gun I have coming. I would say if you were to go, Meridian Defense or Rifle Dynamics is extremely well known. Those two companies are very good. But what you need to know is Fuller Phoenix is launching this summer.
Right.
So I believe Jim Ford, the god of making AKs popular and runners, he makes war guns. He makes guns that go across with operators and dudes that are buying their own guns. If they have their own budget, you can take this gun, you can take what you want, you're buying a Fuller, you're going to wait. When he was making them, you would wait years. Then he got a little more people, and then it got down to 6 months. Then he sold the company to Rifle Dynamics, and it's at 6 months now. And he's not even really involved there no more. He waited 5 years. Rifle Dynamics has had no bad reviews that I know of at all. Yeah. Fuller's been making sure that those guns come out clean. I think his NDA is up. He started his whole new company this summer. Yeah. He sold a rack of put together receivers the other day. And he's releasing them this summer. So Fuller Phoenix. And I believe that's the name of the company. It's so new, I don't even know if that's the name of the company. I believe it's called Fuller Phoenix. Is gonna be the hottest gun you can get this summer. You might, if you want an AK, if you want a custom one, just put it into it right now. Just call them as soon as you can. Tell them Stomp sent you. Tell them there's a guy pumping your information, because I am. These are the baddest makers in the world. I wouldn't buy a gun off Rifle Dynamics because Jim Ford didn't touch it. Right. There's no reason.
He doesn't work at Rifle.
Because he doesn't work at Rifle Dynamics.
Sure.
And he hasn't for 5 years. So I don't mention Rifle Dynamics when I say the top three. I don't. Right. They're not in my top three. I don't even want a Rifle Dynamics now. I want a Fuller Phoenix. So that's what's going to happen. I'm not saying I wouldn't take her. I'd take an older Rifle Dynamics for sure. but I wouldn't order a new one knowing he's not on premises
Right.
and knowing he hasn't been for a year. And that's my personal opinion.
Sure.
So they're all super high recommended. You're not going to go wrong on any four of those companies. I've never heard anyone have a problem with the warranty, talking to them. I've called every one of these companies and talked to a person, all four.
Right.
All four. I've talked to Rifle Dynamics. I've personally messaged Fuller and he's responded to me.
Right.
So, sometimes these guys will hit you back up on Instagram real quickly. They're all, and I love that. I love the fact that none of these dudes are going nowhere. Even if one of them dies, their businesses are super, super solid. Seth has some gurus making. I'm assuming Seth didn't touch mine. Maybe he did.
Right.
Or Chase. Excuse me, not Seth. Chase. I'm assuming Chase didn't touch mine. I'm assuming they have people building them. I don't know.
Yeah.
The way they build them at that place is by far the best. There is nobody making a gun like that kid. That company is the best. There is no better than Definitive Arms as far as I'm concerned.
I agree. Yeah, I've never shot a better AK than the Definitive Arms. It's just an amazing rifle.
It's scary.
Yeah.
My best, and I'm not even exaggerating. Larry's sitting behind me watching it. I got 13 out of 30 once, and then we had a light on it once, and with a light, confirmed hits, 8 out of 20. I had a tanker mag on it with a bench rest, and once I got on, it took me a few rounds to make sure I'm shooting with a red dot at 300 yards. It's a round target. It's maybe 12 inches. He tells me 12. We'll say 16 on the outside, but he's out there every day. It's a 12-inch target. So I hit that 8 out of 20 with an AK-47 7.62 by 3.9. That's sick. That's insane. So they're on and super fun, man. So worth the money. Just go get a gun and enjoy it. I don't care what AK. My impact is super accurate too. So
Right.
this was a gun I paid $550 for, then tuned up. This one right here behind me. So all my guns are tuned up to a degree. I put a brake on everything. I put a trigger on everything. I put an Avtomat on everything. All of them are set up to have a red dot and a flashlight and go pig hunting at any time. And we do take different ones out for different things when we're on the pigs. Sometimes I like to NPAP the best when I'm on a quad because I can ride around with the whole thing out of the way. It's all the way out of the way. There's no question what's going on with an underfolder. So that's the one I go when I go beat up car gun, throw it in the car. That's the one, right? I don't want to put a $2,000 one in the car and have it or hunt it necessarily. Or I'm definitely hunting. We hunt these in the fields all the time. So that's my favorite top 3 AKs. And fun topic for me. I don't think we could ever get past that.
No, I mean, and there's just not that many AK experts, in the United States. I mean, I
wouldn't even say an expert as much as I put my hands on 2 of them. I'm gonna put my hands on a third. I'm an enthusiast. Sure. I like these custom Gucci builds. That's my shit. If I was to buy them all, I'd be happy and just shoot the piss out of them. Just shoot the Jesus out of them. That's the key to all of them, man. Just learn them. Learn where to shoot that red dot at 100. Figure out how to do a headshot all day long at 100. You'll have a lot of confidence in your gun with a red dot. You're gonna learn how to really. I'm not saying don't shoot the irons.
Sure.
But get a budget red dot is better than an expensive one in my mind. Get used to that one. Stick to it. Tink, tink, tink. Enjoy your rounds. They're super, super fun.
And I can tell you from a combat perspective, when people are shooting at you, especially if you're in close range, you're just not going to use your sights. Mentally, you train to use your sights, and it's like, I should use my iron sights. Let me line it up and shoot back. But when bullets are flying, that's why you hear so many situations, whether it's law enforcement or just conflicts between civilians, where they're shooting at each other and nobody gets hit, or somebody gets hit that wasn't even supposed to be. They weren't aiming at. But the person they was aiming at didn't get hit.
There's a whole book in this called On Killing, Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman, and he said the non-shoot rate was like 95% in World War I. They would just reach the gun, the non-aiming rate, where they would just fire off rounds into anywhere just to act like they were shooting. And the no-kill rate was insane. And then in Vietnam, they started putting them on body targets, and they started making the targets fall down, and they started learning how to get the shot in, and they started teaching people how to shoot a silhouette instead of a round target, and all these things were done to make us shoot a person faster.
Well, what I'm saying is you're just not, when you're panicked and scared, you're not going to use your sights.
Yeah.
I mean, if you train enough, put enough bad situations, maybe you will. But a lot of cases, they do not. So the advantage of the red dot is you don't have to line up your sights, just put the red dot on the person.
Yeah.
So you put a red dot on your rifle or your pistol, look through, put the dot on them, and as long as you've zeroed, that sight in, you put the dot on them, you hit them.
10 years from now, every pistol sold is going to have a red dot option, where you just hit the X and you have a red dot that comes on and on.
You can use technology to make your shooting so much
easier. Yeah.
For years, we were training, Marines and soldiers to do 500-yard shots using iron sights with the M16. Where now, we're putting ACOGs on there, which are just scopes that you can zoom in, you got a dot, you have the ability, to see that target where, with iron sights, one, it depends on your eyesight.
Yeah, we're old.
I'm 52, so me seeing targets with my iron sight, 100 yards and in, I can hit with iron sights, no problem. But 200 yards, maybe I'm hitting them, but also
I can't hear it.
It's hard for me to see, dang it, did I hit the target, or can I hear the metal? Because also, as we said in the last episode, both me and Stomp don't have the best hearing.
Right.
So, it's like...
The light's awesome at 300, that's the best part.
But if you have a powered scope to where you can look in, then it extends your range, and you can see, am I hitting this target or am I not hitting this target? And that's really helpful. So the red dot, I recommend the red dot for your home defense rifle or your pistol, because just put the dot on them and
easier.
Yeah. And
all right,
that makes life easier.
Okay, we got another question, and it's about a comment that Andrew Yang made about 3-4 months ago, and it's pretty pertinent now with I actually don't know when he made it. That's a little bit of whatever.
Okay.
But it's kind of pertinent now, and you're an instructor. So his comment was that every cop should be at least a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I know you've heard this question from a bunch of students recently, right?
Right.
What's your take on mandatory BJJ training?
So this is going to be my insight, and I'm going to disagree with the majority of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world.
Really?
So I've heard people say, every cop, Andrew Yang, who I think was running for president,
Sure.
He said every cop should be a purple belt or above, purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And then I've heard some other folks say, every cop should be a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And there's a couple problems with this. And from my perspective, I'm a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I have a great deal of expertise in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But my father was a police officer in Urbana, Illinois. He retired from the police department, worked for many years doing police work. My son is a police officer here in San Antonio, Texas. And he's doing a great job. I did security in the military. I did 33 years in the Navy. The Navy and military security, I have expertise in. Police work, I have zero expertise in. So for my son, I encourage him. We go to the range once a week, we shoot guns. He comes to my class at my school all the time, does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Judo. As a matter of fact, I promoted him a couple months ago to blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu after training with me for 14 years. So, just so you know, there's no bias.
Were you gonna rough on him? Maybe
Maybe
a little bit.
I was a little stingy with his belt promotion. So
just know that now. That was the roughest one ever.
So I don't tell him how to be a police officer.
Sure.
Because I don't know how to be a police officer. I don't know the civilian rules for law enforcement. I don't know them. And I think that's the problem with our society is we're like, what? Everybody should be this because I think so. Well, it's like, I don't know how to do his job. So I encourage him to train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I encourage him to train Judo. I encourage him to go to the range. But when it comes to you need to do this.
Yeah.
It's like, although I've given him so much advice over his 27 years of life, I give him advice on the things that I'm expert.
Yeah, but I think this is like a general. This is like
Right.
I know he's not going to be a purple belt before he can become a cop, right? That's a crazy thing to,
Right.
to
Because
insinuate.
it's going to take,
But I
on
think
average, it's going to take 2 to 3 years to get your blue belt. It's going to take 5 to 7 years of training
to get a purple
belt. So the two things right off the bat for the cops is who's going to pay for it.
Right.
Because jiu-jitsu lessons aren't cheap. You know, like if you're my son, you just train with me for free.
Right.
But outside my kids, you know, you're going to have to pay some tuition. I know a lot of places give police discounts or military discounts, but still, it's going to come out of that cop's salary. And when does he get to train? Is he training on police time?
Right.
Or
his time.
On his time.
Right.
You know, because it's awfully
hard.
Wonderful of us to suggest, hey, all you cops, use your own money. Not that we're paying you that much anyways. Use your own money and your own time away from your family or whatever hobbies or other things you like to do in life. And you should do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Because I think...
What would you think about this? Okay, so we don't mandate it for the cop to know, but how about this? What would you say if part of the training was like they went from no training pretty much after the academy and what happens, and here's how you fill out your paperwork correctly, and please don't abuse this person, but we're not going to teach you how to actually take somebody to the ground in an economical way, or maybe 6 of my friends to help us take a guy down and not hurt him in an economical way, and not destroy him. I mean, so what would you say if they mandated BJJ and whatever else training they needed to a certain percentage of time of their day? Like, what if they went in and did like 25 minutes of training at the end of the shift? They had to go in for a mandatory weight, fitness, and running. Like, what if a cop had to be in shape? What if a cop had to be proficient at fighting? What if a cop had to be proficient at shooting?
Right. But what I think is a bad idea is for me to say specifically what arts they should train.
Sure.
Because
leave it open.
Like, I think a police officer training in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is going to help him definitely. A police officer training in Judo. Judo is a magnificent martial art.
Absolutely.
Definitely going to help. Or Russian Sambo.
Sure.
Or, even wrestling. Like, wrestling is...
Base.
It is a true martial art, and probably the oldest martial art known to humanity is wrestling. And it's super effective. What I don't think is a good idea is the striking martial arts, because it's more dangerous to strike somebody in the head as you're trying to subdue them than, everybody's talking about, well, don't choke them. Yeah, I guarantee you a lot more people have died from head strikes than they're dying from any kind of choke.
Non-sadistic choking cops, maybe ones that just take control and do it the correct way or whatever.
Because if you cut somebody's blood supply off to their brain, you can do it within 6 to 10 seconds and they'll lose consciousness if you do the choke right. If you hold it, for a minute or two, they're going to die, or, they're going to get significant brain damage. But if you just put the choke on them, get them to comply, put the handcuffs on them, it's a good deal. Nobody's hurt, everybody's okay, but to say which art they need to train, it's just like, I think for Americans, for us as citizens, we set a standard. It's like, okay, I don't want you to use deadly force when not necessary. I want you to treat everybody fairly, regardless of race, religion, creed, national origin, all those things. Like, I want you to do that. But exactly how you do it, I think a lot of people, including people in my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu community, we need to stay in our lane. Unless you was a police officer and you have some hands-on expertise, and I'm not talking about, well, I've trained with some police officers, I've talked to some police officers. If you went to college, that's an ineffective, unacceptable survey. That's not a random sample. A couple police officers in town, I talked to them, and they agree that, well, that's okay for your town, but that doesn't, maybe what works in San Antonio wouldn't agree in New York or Los Angeles or, Dothan, Alabama. So, it's just like NASA. When I look at NASA, I say, hey, man, I don't want your rockets exploding in the sky. When you send a space shuttle up, I want it to come back. I want everybody to be okay. If it blows up in the sky, I'm not happy about it.
It's a bad thing.
But I have no expertise to tell NASA well, instead of this amount of fuel, I think you should use this amount. Like, I don't know what I'm talking about. Like, I'm not an expert in science.
We were talking about rocket fuel yesterday, man.
Engineering,
Don't let him tell you that. We discuss rocket fuel constantly.
So, I think that's the problem. When I hear the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu community
what would advice be? Like, if you could advise a police department and they said, "Hey, Saad, we know you're the man. Can you advise us on what would be best for our officers to be able to take a person and survive a fight?" How would you do this?
Any of the arts that I mentioned, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, Sambo, wrestling, I think would all be incredibly effective.
So you do think training is necessary?
Oh, for sure. And they get training at the police academy. I know they do it at the San Antonio Police Academy.
Sure, they do.
I don't know what training they get elsewhere. And the military does the same thing. When we send a Marine through boot camp, he leaves with a tan belt in the Marine Corps martial arts program. I'm not sure exactly how the Army does it. They have a combatives program too. But so when they go through boot camp, they get a basic level. And I would agree, like, it would help all of our soldiers and Marines, to have martial arts experience. But when you say that, you have to also give them time to do it, give them the resources to do it.
Yeah. Not funding them is not going to help.
Sure. It's just like we tell public school teachers, well, we want you to meet these educational objectives and also, buy your own school supplies because our budget can only get so much.
Or here's $150.
Yeah,
that's what they give you for a year, $150.
Most of the school teachers I talk to spend $600 to $700
easy
every year on school
and that
supplies.
has nothing to do with like incentive plans.
Right.
Like I'm talking about like if you do like I'm going to make a deal with you. If you get this, I'll bring you in some whatever.
Sure.
Like the incentive, like real tangible. It's got to be something.
Right.
You can't do an incentive plan and then not be something.
Yeah.
It's got to be something. So you got to, like I used to bring in Beth's Army shirts. She would get a bunch of shirts for whatever, like extra stuff, you know what I mean? Army gear, Army pants, everything that was going on, the old stuff that she would have to change up as being an officer. Right. So she would have to change the shoes out. She'd have badass boots and stuff, and I would bring that in and I'd put it in a school store. But
just in case you didn't realize, Stomp's wife, Beth, is in the Army. She's a warrant officer in the Army.
Yeah, she does Army stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely. She's got to be a badass to hang around me, that's for sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be easy.
I think it would take a special lady.
Yeah.
To deal with.
For sure, dude. Just a saint, really. Just an
Sure.
angel, really.
Sure.
If you've never met her, and you probably haven't, but I mean, she's just the nicest person, man. When I met her, I was so lucky.
Right. Oh, yeah.
I was so lucky. Okay, so listen, I got a little update on Lou, and I'm going to change gears a little bit. We're about halfway through, a little bit past
about dogs. Yeah.
Talk a little bit about dogs, but I got to talk about Lou a little bit, and then I want to go into, like, I have some really kind of crazy stories about a veterinarian I worked at, and I can just list off like 6-7 stories real quick and tell you some things I learned working at the vet. Mm-hmm. So we thought Lou had cancer about 4 months ago, and we thought Lou was going out and dying. And
that's your Mastiff.
And that's my big bull Mastiff, and he's just the sweetest boy, and he, there's hundreds of people who were praying for him, and I told one notice, and they just got so many people, and I took this dog to school with me every week on Fridays, and he would go to therapy with the kids. Just the sweetest dog. So we think he's dying, like we're giving him like, extra whatever. And he's just so sick all the time, so slow. And, we've 4 or 5 months later, I'm like, okay, what's going on? Right. Cancer is, he was supposed to be dead a long time ago. Mm-hmm. He's supposed to be dead in like 2 weeks.
Right, because the vet told you he had
2 weeks.
That was going to be terminal.
Yeah, we spent a lot of money. I'm not dogging no vets. I'm trying to say some vets are difficult. It's a hard place. So, we go and get ultrasounds and whatever. And we go get it all sent to a new vet, and we go to the new vet last week, and I sent some pictures of all sitting out in front with the Band-Aids and stuff, waiting at the vet, and she's like, listen, so if it was cancer, it would have been super aggressive by now. There's no reason he would be here. So let's start looking at other stuff like immediately and blah blah blah. And his thyroid is just totally hypothyroid, which means it's super low, which makes sense. He can't do nothing. I take him for a walk, he falls over, right? Mm-hmm. I think he's dying, but he didn't die for months and months, and we're babying him, and can't do nothing. He falls out in the backyard. He's just so tired. So we put him on some thyroid medicine yesterday. He's starting to wake up a little bit, I think.
Really?
I think he is super low thyroid, and I think something was going on, and all the drugs we gave him, and switching his dog food, and all the steroids and stuff we put him on at the beginning of those sessions with the other vet, or maybe, I don't know what's going on, but maybe Lou was making it. And veterinarians are crazy places, and it's just a little segue to my first official job was, one day I'll talk about my grandma teaching me how to tie my shoes and paying me $0.25 to weed and teaching me economics. That's all I needed to know ever in economics was, how to get paid for doing something that took a minute versus how to get paid for something that took a half hour. Same money. So I could talk about that, and I could talk about the 12 yards I had with my buddy Chris Normer, first jobs. But my real first job was working for Doc Albers at the veterinarian, and this was just a crazy place to work. So I was a kennel boy, and it was a job for an 18-year-old for sure. It wasn't a 15-year-old job, but I knew the guy for a long time. And I think I worked there like from 15 to 18 or so, all through high school. I worked at a veterinarian office, and I was the kennel guy. So I was in charge of walking dogs, medicating dogs, feeding dogs, putting dead dogs in a freezer, taking dead dogs out of a freezer, changing all the food, all the rotating of stock, and then at the end of the day, you clean the whole place. And kind of a crazy job for a high school kid at 15. And so you would see the most insane things at this veterinarian, and what a fun place to work, and what an experience working for such a ball buster. Doc Albers was, and he was a hard dude, and he grew up in animal husbandry, which is like big veterinarian at Cornell University. So he was like a farm vet in Iowa forever, and he was real serious. And I think he was in his late 60s, and I could tell a couple Doc Albers stories. One time, I'm working for him in his late 60s, and he gives me a cat to clean, and the cat just hadn't taken a poo in week or so, and he had just given it an enema, and he had just given it another enema, and he brings this really sick cat back to me, and he goes, listen, we're not going to do any more today, we'll come back tomorrow and try this, give the cat a bath, and let me know when it's ready, because bathing a cat was something you did on a daily basis in this place, and grooming, and some light grooming, but all the bathing, there was a groomer, so I would brush, but I wouldn't actually cut or anything, but I would bathe them all. So I'm bathing the cat, and you gotta put the cat in usually around its neck on two sides, right? So there's like a string here and a string here, and you isolate it in the middle of this big sink. Some of them you gotta put on my gloves because they're tearing you apart. Man.
Sure.
So these cats are just destroying you. So this cat's like super sick. It's letting me bathe it. I bathe it. Super cool. I put it on the table, and I grabbed the hair dryer, and I started hair drying the cat, and I'm hair drying the cat, and the cat starts looking at me funny, right? And it's sitting there and it fucking throws its head down on the table like this, and I'm sideways on it, right? I'm here with the hair dryer, and the cat's in front of me, right? And the table's in front of me, and the cat throws his head down sideways and puts his ass out in the air, and goes, pow!
Yeah.
And explodes. And the poo hit the wall like rocks, like 6 feet away. And the cat just goes, and starts doing this. It's just purring, dude, like, and I go, holy shit. And the cat's destroyed. I mean, the back end's blown out. The cat's fine, but there's poo everywhere. There's rock poo on the wall, on the floor. And I run into the vet's office, main office. I go, Doc, a cat exploded. He goes, what? I go, what? He's a real serious dude. And he comes running out the back. And he goes, I go, yeah, man, straight up, it exploded. He comes running into the back because weird shit happens at veterinarians, and he took that pretty serious. And he goes and he looks, and the cat's laying down sideways. Poo everywhere, right? Just like broken poo, like a little bit of like muddy. It's just like, yeah, seeing a cat explode when I was 14 or 15. One of the funniest stories.
So did the cat live?
Totally, the cat was fine. Yeah, cat blew out, and it was like, it didn't have to come in the next day and get its enema. It was a totally shitty situation. I mean,
Yeah, I see.
totally kind of a crazy story there, and see, that cat blowout story was one of my good ones. And then another cat story. We had this cat named Rambo. So Rambo was like this big, like Minnesota, like Maine Coon cat, like a Maine Coon.
Yeah.
Like some sort of cat you name Rambo.
Sure.
Dude, I'm like a staff. You know when you get used to doing something, you do it?
Yeah.
Staff, right? This is what I do.
Right.
Staff. I go by this cage every day. 100 times. 200 times a day, maybe. Maybe I go by that cage 200 times. Man, we get this cat named Rambo. Rambo just reaches out and just lights me up, dude. I mean, kills me. So crazy, man. It grabbed my arm, chest, almost got my face. I mean, destroyed me with one paw through the cage.
Wow.
And then I met Rambo.
Right.
I didn't know Rambo was there. And then you gotta feed Rambo. No, man, there ain't no. I don't know what you've done about war and all that shit you did. Whatever. I mean, I had to feed Rambo twice a day and give it meds.
Damn.
Pelican gloves. I would start shaking a little bit, man, when I had to go deal with this cat, man. It was like destroying me all the time, man. It was just fucking me up, man. In the gloves, it was like a 20-pound cat. It was huge. Huge. There wasn't like a day after Rambo's 3 days there that I never didn't do a little bump scoot around that cage.
I bet.
It solidified that cat was the most dominant thing that I'd ever seen in that kennel for 3 years.
Dang.
It was a cat named Rambo. One time, Doc gets he's getting all these birds from the Suncoast Seabird Sanctuary, and constantly dealing with like birds, and and birds are scary, especially if you're not a bird guy. And sometimes birds are dinosaurs, right? And pelicans are dinosaurs. I don't know where you're from, but pelicans are huge.
Yeah,
They got
we
big,
see them by the ships all the time.
huge, big birds. These are big birds. We get some Suncoast Seabird Sanctuary, and the pelican is in the cage, and Doc's like, "Get the pelican." This is a hard man. I go, "No, I ain't getting the pelican." He goes, "No, get the pelican, Stomp." Or he didn't call me Bobby. That was, "Get the pelican, Bobby." No, Doc, you asked me to do a lot of stuff, man. This pelican's tore up. It's got a beak. It's like 6 feet long in the cage. He said, "Get it." He's yelling at me. I go, no, I ain't getting it, man. He reaches in. He goes, "Come here." The girl takes me over to the cage. He goes, "Watch." He didn't say watch. He goes, he reaches in. He goes, pop, snatches the pelican super fast. Snatches the beak. Snatches the two things. Closes it. Pulls them out of the cage. Has them like a duck. Holding the pelican. He goes, "See?" I go, yeah, let me get him. He goes, no, puts him back in the cage. He goes, "Get the pelican." I go, "Come on, Doc, you just got the pelican. Why would you make me do this?" He goes, "Get the pelican." I go, "No," snatched the pelican, did exactly what he did. Now I got this pelican, then he gives it its shot. Doc was crazy, man. One day he goes into the cage, he's got this, he's got these kennels for the big dogs, right? Like, there's a big Rottweiler, not Moose's size, but a big one, like a 120-pound Rottweiler. And it might be why I'm good with dogs, man. I dealt with $100,000 as a kid.
Right.
So we get this huge Rottweiler, and man, Doc has the shot in his mouth. This dude was such a badass dude. He's like 65 right now. I'm telling you, he's like 65 when he did this. He got the shot in his mouth. Walks into the cage. The door shuts behind him, and the dog knows it. And he's in this kennel with this huge Rottweiler, and the Rottweiler lights him up. And Doc grabs the top of the cage, does a pull-up, holds him like this, and just starts stomping this dog to death.
Damn.
Almost. He damn near beat the dog to death. The dog was real fucked up already.
Sure.
So he stomped his surgery. I know we're not supposed to say that, man, but this dog went after him straight up.
Sure.
I couldn't get to it fast enough. By the time I got to the cage and it opened, Doc had given him the shot.
Right.
He was in the middle of giving him the shot. He comes out of the cage. He goes, "You see that?" I go, "Dude, what the fuck?" He goes, "That was close." That's a big dog. I go, yeah, it is, dude. Wow. All right, so let me think. The sad part of working out of veterinary, it never ends. It's a very weird job, man. You see dead dogs from the time it opens to the time it closes, all day long. It's crazy. People use veterinarians to put dogs down at an alarming rate, and that is a big part of the day. And I would say there's probably 2 a day, no problem, easily in a veterinary. And sometimes you see the most heartbreaking things, and one of them stands out. We had like a country boy that knew Doc somehow, must have did some work in the country with him or whatever. The dog went down, and he was gonna have to be put down, and he went home and drove all the way back to the country and grabbed everybody and brought him in to have the dog put down. And there was like 3 kids and a wife, and I remember just thinking, man, we're so this guy loves this dog so much, he just won't stop crying, man. This real hard dude won't stop crying. And I remember thinking that. I never had my own dog at that point, so you're kind of like learning. I had my own dog, but I never had my dog at that point. Right. The dog I had paid for, I had taken care of, And it was a real wake-up call as far as how serious it was at that place for me. Because we got so used to it. You get so used to it.
Sure.
That, it's just happening. So, yeah. And then one more crazy veterinarian story, working there. And this one was a hard one because I got used up at this place for years and years and years by this lady that ran the kennel. So I was the kennel dude, and she was the kennel lady during the day, and she would make the schedule, and you would have to clean out the traps twice a day. And on my schedule was 1 trap cleaning at the end of my shift, and on the end of her schedule was a trap cleaning. And she would let me start the day with a trap cleaning and end the day with a trap cleaning, and then I was doing all the rotation, and then I was doing like cleaning up the surgery room autoclave machine, doing the floors, doing all the surgical gears, and I didn't realize I wasn't signed off on none of this. And she taught me how to do it, but I wasn't certified, so she would come in and check it to make sure it was done right or whatever. And it was ridiculous. I mean, the first year and a half I worked there was just crazy. It was like a slave driver. I was working insane. And when I would go by a cage. I would go by a cage 300 times a day, and it was insane work. And I knew I wasn't supposed to do the trap but once. I knew it was on her shift. It was at the end of the shift. They write down, everything's written down on a list, what you're supposed to do. But she was the boss. Right. And she would tell Doc how I was doing. She would write up my reports. And Doc was a friend from church. And I didn't want it to be a problem. So as a kid, I was like crazy intimidated by this lady. So she's essentially, I'm doing half her job, all of my job. I'm not signing off on anything. She's signing off on it, but I'm doing like some real technical stuff. Plus I'm doing a whole entire cleaning shift after everybody leaves. I got to clean the whole entire place, top to bottom. On top of everything else I'm doing on the shift, I'm getting worked, bro. Worked. I don't even know it. I do know it, but I don't know it. One day I hear her talking to a customer about a private care for their dog. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, there's no private care here. And she's saying that she can take care of their person's dog at her house for X amount, blah, 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 blah. And I realize she's got a scam going on. And I start watching her, and I start paying attention to, at the end of her shift, her talking to customers and shit. And she's handing out like little pieces of paper with her phone number on it and stuff, and I got her good, I got her solid. You can't do this. This guy charges a lot of money for someone to come in at night and check on the dogs at midnight, and then I come in at like 5 in the morning, sometimes 4 in the morning. These dogs don't go without nobody for like 4 hours. The longest shift they're without somebody is like 4 hours, and I believe we might even have cameras back then in the 90s. So this is a pretty serious veterinarian. Yeah. There was no private care at nobody's house. That wasn't happening. I had her. I knew I had her. I couldn't go and complain about nothing, but I could definitely tell her she couldn't rob Doc no more. I went in and I wrote down the lady's number. Go to her, and I said, then she goes to me, I didn't do the traps. I didn't do something. Yeah, I came in the next day. She told me to do the trap. Well, that's your trap. You better get on it before you leave. You already passed your time. She's like, what? I go, no. She goes, that shit don't work like that. Get on that trap right now. I go, I'm not doing your traps no more. I'm not doing it. I'm not rotating your stock either. That's your job. You're the manager. I'm not the manager. I don't rotate stock. Whatever it was. There was a couple different things I was doing. The autoclave, cleaning up the surgery room, and the trap. So it was the surgery. Maintaining the surgery room wasn't me. That was her. The autoclave, all the surgery stuff was her. I would do those 2 jobs and the traps. It was crazy. So she says she's going to go talk to the doctor to get me fired. And he would have fired me in a second. If I would have wasted his time in a bit at all, I'm sure he would have fired me in a second. Maybe not. He was a pretty cool dude, really, but very hard to work for. Extremely hard to work for. I watched him fire people for nothing. Like, you don't like it here? Get out. No problem. This is how it is here. So he was like that. So, yeah, man, she backed off right away. I showed her the number. I go, man, I can just hand this number right to Doc, and you can talk to her about the private care that you offer.
Right.
That ain't happening. And I realized right then, man, you didn't have to tolerate nonsense at work. It was a great lesson.
Sure.
A great lesson at 15, man. I was getting worked, bro. You ever been worked like that at a job? You're like you said something about the Navy tells you whatever to do. You just do it, no problem. You can't have nothing to say. But you ever gotten hammered at a job where you knew someone was taking advantage of you and then you learned from it? Like I think all shitty jobs are like that.
Sure. Yeah.
What was your worst job? Well, this is like one of my better jobs as a kid. But
my worst job by far was my very first job in the Navy. Like we was doing 6 on, 6 off on the ship. And so you would be on watch for 6 hours, and then you'd be off watch for 6 hours. But off watch, maybe you get to sleep, but also, you might have to do some other work around the ship off watch. So, man, it's my hardest job was I had to do lookout on board the USS Mississippi, and I was standing on the bridge wing with binoculars in this big orange Arctic suit, because my job was to look for freaking icebergs.
Really?
Who was out there?
Where were you at?
In the north. We was in the North Atlantic, and I'm out there, and
were you bald
then
too?
No, I had hair. I was just an E1. I was new in the Navy, and they're like, hey, you look, for these damn icebergs, and
it's a very important job, son.
Sure. Yeah. They made a whole movie about the Titanic.
I saw
an
it.
iceberg they didn't see. Yeah. Well, so here I am. I'm 17 years old because I came in the Navy 2 months after I turned 17. And I'm on this bridge wing. And my boss, his name, it doesn't matter what his name was. this sorry SOB, he was in an enclosed space, not much bigger than your room here, but it had windows so he could look at me as he was drinking his coffee, as I was out there with my binoculars in this orange suit, looking like I was going out into, Antarctica.
And you were, sort of.
Yeah, because we're in the very northern part of the Atlantic where there's icebergs and, we don't want to run a ship into them. So I'm looking, and I kid you not, I'm out there crying. Tears are freezing to my face. And I would be out there for 6 hours, freezing. And then I'd be off for 6 hours, and then I'd have to come back on for 6 hours. Worst job ever. I was like, I'm out there.
Is that something like everybody does, or just you?
Oh, every ship has lookouts. And so one of my jobs was to look out. And when you're in the really cold regions, you don't want the ship to run into an iceberg, because, it'll sink the ship. So, my job was to find those icebergs, and it was the worst job I ever had. It was so freaking cold. And, I'm out there with the damn binoculars, tears freezing in my face, and I'm like, forget the Navy. I'm just 17 at the time. I'm like, forget the Navy. Right? I know I made a hell of a mistake joining this freaking organization. And so my boss, he's in there drinking coffee, smoking cigarettes, and, if he looked up in this warm room that he was in, and I wasn't freaking looking for icebergs.
If you weren't dying,
I was going to get a
problem.
earful. Oh, and they would chew me out just left and right, and then just laugh about the fact that I was going out there to endure that. They're like, hey, I had to do it when I was new in the Navy.
Yeah, it's a
now
part.
You get to do it.
I think that's part of it, right?
Man, and life of a sailor, you know, whether you're on a U.S. naval ship or a merchant ship or, you know, some ship out there going fishing, you know, like, I mean, people that are going out there to work for a living. I'm not talking about, you know, like you're on some freaking yacht hanging out with the Rockefellers, you know.
I went to the Bahamas like that was fun 2 years ago.
Life of a sailor is a hard life. Like, don't get it twisted. You know, like, they'll be like, oh, you know, back in 86 when I joined, they're like, yeah, join the Navy, come see the world. And, you know, they had pictures of, like, the Eiffel Tower and Big Ben and exotic beaches in Jamaica. That's what they were selling me on. What I ended up doing was looking for freaking icebergs, freezing my butt off, thinking, I've been duped.
You're 17?
Yeah, I have been scammed. And I fell for it, and here I am. You know, like,
when did it start turning for you? Like after the icebergs, or when did you realize it was okay? The next day, maybe when you weren't on the watch, or
my first couple years in the Navy, I just hated it. You know, but
really,
it was a lot of work. It was just, you know, you're just constantly doing work, and you know, it was just miserable conditions. And it took me a while, you know, to just accept that, okay, this Navy life isn't so bad. And part of that was just, you know, starting to make rank, you know, where you first come in the Navy, if there's a crap job, you're doing it. You know, like, so if the sewage, you know, backed up in the head, in the Navy we called the bathrooms heads. If it backed up in the head, they'd be calling me, they'd be like, Al-Aziz, get your ass over here. Clean up all this shit. And that's after standing out there looking for icebergs, freezing my butt off,
right,
trying to warm up, and then clean up all this human waste, you know, because it's like, oh, that's your job, man. Good job.
So it takes a couple of years to get into the Navy, and it starts turning where you see it's okay, and then you're sitting behind. When did it take for you to be sitting there with the cigarette, looking at the dude, laughing your ass off? How long did that take?
That took several years. Is
Is that like a surreal moment?
Oh, yeah. Like,
did you realize right away
that you're now the guy in charge?
How was that?
Oh, that was a nice transition. It was like, oh, now the Navy ain't so bad because I'm not
20
the guy
years
with
later.
all the worst jobs.
20 years later.
But your first few years, and then I think back when I joined the Navy, and you know, this is February 1986. We
86.
I think our monthly pay
86.
was $725 a
Judas
month.
Priest, you got another thing coming was playing on MTV?
Yeah. For E1, $725 a month. That's what they was paying me to freeze my butt out there looking for icebergs, tears frozen in my face.
Did you ever think about medical back then at 17? You were like, I got medical, or was that just like,
No.
whatever?
No, because at 17, you're like, shoot, I'm healthy. I didn't go see no doctors, you know. And then the funny thing is in the Navy, there was a stigma about going to medical. It was like, we've got work to do, you know. Al-Aziz, we need you looking for damn icebergs. We need you cleaning up crap in
it seems like there's a lot to
washing
do.
dishes, whatever horrible job, you know, whatever job that you would not want to do on a ship, that's what we got to do. Oh, somebody's got to go down and clean the bilges out.
Yeah,
oh, that's you, man.
Sometimes cats explode.
Yeah, sure.
But listen, I think these jobs that are so crazy,
Yeah.
like for me, 15 dead dog duty every day, cats exploding, such craziness.
Right.
Every day, such craziness. It kind of like tuned me.
Right.
Like I had seen a lot of insane stuff by the time I made it to like a school system, and then like kids explode and then all that stuff, and by the time I made it to a bar and you watch someone's head fucking get chopped off, you know, like in a bad fight, and you've just seen enough crazy stuff that you can start getting attuned to it.
Right.
It's like to see something insane isn't necessary. Like I remember one time, for instance, we were at I was at my buddy's house, and there was a whole bunch of screaming coming on and a dog wailing, and the dog came running, or my friends came running in and said the dog jumped on a stick, and they had a bayou, and the dog was prancing in the bayou, and it jumped down on the stick and it went up into her rib cage and poked her lungs. It was bad. It was really bad. So I work at the veterinarian. I go, okay, we got a bad. This is bad. The dude's a doctor. He's freaking out. He can't even drive the car. The mom's freaking out. I'm like 14, 15. I got my permit. I work at the vet. I'm like, we got to get down to Doc Hours right now. I grabbed the dog, threw the dog in the back, driving a Volvo, fly down there. They do an emergency surgery, put the dog back together, it was just an internal lung thing, whatever, something, maybe it wasn't even a lung thing, but it was poked up there. My point is, I knew what to do. I was like, this is a problem.
Yeah.
We got to go now. There's no talking about it. Give me the keys. You can't drive. You're freaking out. Doc, stop. Let's go.
Right.
Time to go. Dog's dying. Dog's going to die here. There ain't no calling no ambulance right now. We got to go right now. This is before cell phones, man. We just showed up on a Tuesday at like 2 p.m. in the summer. We were out in the, he was like off, whatever it was. We fixed the dog. It was, it happened and went quick. One time I was given a matted homeless dog that we found, real long-haired dog. I'm like 20-something. Be a good ending to this. A couple of doc stories, and then we'll shut it down. We're passing out.
Cool.
So I'm in my 20s, crazy long hair. Hadn't seen Doc in a couple of years, and we get this homeless dog, and it's matted out, and I'm trying to get these mats of hair off this dog so I can shave it down with the shavers, give it a new haircut, get the dog ready for its, for us, long-haired dog. And I take a Gerber Gator Hunter knife, and I've got a mat of hair, and I'm cutting the mats off with the knife, and then I just slip, and I hit the skin, and I fillet this dog, give it a nice chop, good 6-inch cut. I mean, a big one. I mean, it went right through this dog. I was like, oh. I call up Doc. Doc, I'm bringing him in. He's like, yep. Come run this dog down, towel it all up, run this dog down, wrap the towel around it a couple times, like whatever. I knew to wrap it. I knew what to do. Right. Wrap the dog up in the towel, take him down to Doc. Doc shaved the stomach, stitched him up, like 10, 15 stitches, hands me the dog, go and get out of here. I'm like, what do I owe you? He's like, nothing, don't worry about it, man. You're trying to help a homeless dog, man. He shaved the whole dog down for me. They trimmed up the dog. Here you go. Here's the dog. We gave it to somebody. So, I mean, it was crazy how it would work out in the long run. Working at the veterinarian is, interesting in the end. You know a lot from it. You've seen a lot of weird things that you key up on your dogs. Like, I know what to do with my dogs because of working there and stuff. And I know when things kind of look bad. I can kind of like warn Beth a little bit when I think it's going to be a bad call, a little bit. We've had those too. So yeah, the dogs are important. The first jobs are interesting. I wanted to tell a couple of the funny stories, man. The cat exploding and the working at the vet was just last one. I pull up the doc one time. He's like 80 something. He's been long dead. He's like 80 something. I'm in my like 30s. We'll say my 30s. And he's at church, and I don't know why I was there, but it had to be something with my mom. And I pull up the doc, and I pull up next to him. I sat down, and he was like almost blind. Like he looks at me, and he looks me up and down, and he goes, "I didn't think you were gonna make it." That's Doc's assessment. Like from me, because I was crazy at 15. He knew it.
Sure.
I was crazy. I was crazy for. Still sort of.
I can't imagine anybody thinking you was a little bit crazy. I can't imagine that.
A little bit nutty. So Doc Albers, just a gentle, hard man that was really super nice. Really taught me lessons the hard way. I mean, the perfect father figure. Took zero shit. You worked your ass off. It never ended. There was no complaining to him about nothing about other workers. There was not. You didn't come to him with nothing.
Right.
One time he couldn't make payroll, man. He went to the bank and grabbed cash. That's the type of dude he was.
Right.
He was going through a divorce. It was crazy. So real cool dude. All right, so I think we knocked it out in the bag. If you guys have any questions, please hit us up in the comments and subscribe, share. It really does help us out a lot. It honestly does. We're building up every week, by the way. Yeah. We're getting a couple hundred views, a couple hundred more. We'll have some more happening. And if you guys have any topics you want us to bring up, let us know. Stomp strong. Cool. We'll call it a day. Saad, you got anything to say?
No, that's good.
Awesome. Perfect.